Hi everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Col-erase pencils. So these are meant to be erasable coloured pencils and these are by the brand Prismacolor. You've probably seen these online before, a lot of artists use them. It's something I've been wanting to get my hands on for a long time now. And this pack that I have here is the 12 pack. They are also available in a 24 pack. At the time of me ordering these, they were not in stock. I got impatient, so I just ordered the 12 pack. I probably should have just waited, to be honest. But for a 12 pack, it's quite a nice range of colours, which we will see in a second. So you can see the colours there, although I will create a swatch in a second because some of these I think look a little bit different on paper. When I first opened these, I actually panicked for a second because I couldn't see a nib, and I thought that they'd just broken in transit. But yeah, obviously they don't come sharpened. So here they are once I've sharpened them all. First thing to note, they all sharpened really easily. The lead seems quite strong. I'm hoping that it won't go down too quickly when using them. And I only used a really cheap pencil sharpener. Nothing fancy. I have seen a lot of people sharpen them with knives though. So I'm just creating this colour swatch here in the background. I'm going to create this in the order that is on the back of the packet. As the name suggests, these are pencil colours that are erasable. I think they were originally intended to be used for animation, drawing like one frame in blue and another frame in red, but don't quote me on that. You might notice that some of these do look a little bit different on paper to the colour that they look on the pencil themselves. The paper that I am testing these out on at the moment is just regular printer paper. I know there's quite a lot of different paper people use for coloured pencils, but for the people that watch my videos, I think the most common type of paper probably is going to be just regular printer paper. So this is just cheap stuff from a supermarket. So you might have noticed that the dark green looks lighter on the paper than it does on the pencil. And then obviously the black lead doesn't come out quite as black as, well, as black. It's quite a shame to be honest, but I guess it's sort of to be expected. Probably the same with most pencil colour brands. With these swatches, I've tried to darken it and put more lead down as I go sort of to the right hand side. This is because we're going to be testing these for erasability soon. So hopefully we will see how it erases a lighter layer and how it puts up with a darker layer or more lead on the page. You know what I mean. So this next bit I'm doing here, I just wanted to test how well these pencils blend with each other. This is before I actually rub them in to blend them or anything like that. This is just using the pencil, starting light and switching between the two that I'm using. And I just keep going until I've got what I wanted. I will say they do blend quite well like this actually, but it did take quite a lot of effort and quite a lot of time compared to the other brands, which I'll show you in a second. So they're good for that, but you have to be willing to put in maybe a bit more time. So before we do all the erasability tests, let's just put down some other brands so that we can compare them as well. This first one is Faber Castell's Polychromos. I didn't put down the same amount of swatches with these. I only wanted to test a couple of colours randomly just to see how they compared. The first thing that I did notice when putting these down was I didn't have to press anywhere near as hard to get the lead on the page. It went down much easier and much darker. So I guess if you were colouring a large area, you would probably find it easier with these other brands. But I don't think Col-erase are actually intended for, colouring whole pieces. I think of them more as for illustration purposes, for line art and things like that. So it is a different kind of pencil. So I just threw down two swatches that went down much easier and two more little tests that are just blended into each other. The colour choice was a bit random here. I think I have about 36 colours of this range or something. So I only need that small bit to compare it. But I do want to test another brand. Well, actually it's the same brand, it's Prismacolor, but this is their other range of pencils, Prismacolor Premier. I would say that Polychromos and Prismacolor Premier are probably the top known pencil colours. I do only have the skin tone set for these though, which meant I was a little bit limited with the colour choice. But we'll work with what we've got. So again, two colour swatches at the top and two sample patches that are just blended into each other with just the pencils for now. As with the Polychromos, the Premier pencils went down onto the paper much easier and faster than the Col-erase. You can tell that I don't have a huge range of the colours from the horrible colour choice of blending here. So we've got all of our pencil colours here, our swatches here. And the first thing I want to test is how well these blend into each other using a cotton earbud. Obviously you could use anything else. I'm not sure how well it shows on camera, but the Col-erase actually did blend into one another really nicely. Whereas when I moved on to the Polychromos, it did blend, but not quite as well, and it took a lot more work as well. Again, a lot of this might differ depending on what paper you use. This is just regular printer paper. Each of these pencil types definitely has its own properties. I can't remember which is which, but I think one of them is oil-based and one of them is wax-based, and I'm not sure about the actual Col-erase ones. And finally, the Prismacolor Premier pencils did not blend almost at all, actually. It did sort of smudge it a little bit, but I really put a lot of effort into going over this, and it just was not moving. You can see on this final one, it does sort of smudge it into one another, but I wouldn't really say it blended it. What I'm doing here, again, might not show up too well on camera, but I heard someone in a video say that Col-erase don't smudge when you wipe your finger on them. So I wanted to test that. I just ran my finger through 2 or 3 colours and it smudged straight away effortlessly. So not quite as good as what people mentioned in videos. I then tested the Polychromos in the same way. 1 finger through it and it smudged. The Prismacolor Premier put up a little bit more resistance actually. So the next test, probably the main test, how erasable they are. So I've got my different erasers here. And I wanted to test this on camera so that you can see the results for yourself. I would say that some colours definitely erase better than others. I don't think any of them are 100%. I wouldn't say you get rid of everything quite like you can with a graphite pencil, a regular HB pencil. But some colours definitely did work better than others. I had to constantly clean the eraser through this. You can see how messy the page is getting. This was actually driving me nuts. I really wanted to clean this off. In some cases, I wasn't sure if, because I'd put the layer on quite thick to the right, I wasn't sure if the eraser was having more trouble here and it was actually smudging it into the page, almost like burnishing it, but without the pressure. So it almost made it more difficult to erase that. So you might be able to get better results if you work gently, bit by bit, putting more time into it. You can probably see the results already on camera, but I will scan this in and show an image in a moment that's better quality. The Polychromos and Premier are not intended to be erasable, but we're going to compare them anyway. So Polychromos, definitely not very erasable. You can obviously bring some of it up, but definitely not all of it. And the Premier gave similar results, again, maybe even less if anything. So these tests are sort of showing me that the Premier ones maybe stick down more on the paper because they didn't smudge quite as easily and they didn't erase as much either. So one extra little test, just very quickly with this small space that I've got left in the corner here. I just want to compare a regular HB pencil and also a Pilot Colour Eno. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce them, but these are quite well known online and almost a bit of a competitor to the Col-erase pencils. I like using mechanical pencils, so I like these ones quite a bit. So just testing the erasability of the pencil, it came up quite easily, even on that patch where I'd pressed harder on the right hand side. I think you can probably see this on camera, although I do realise my page is getting a bit messy by this point. And the Pilot Colour, not quite as easy as the HB pencil, but it did bring most of it up. I would say probably a little bit better than the Col-erase. But I only have 1 lead colour for these, so I couldn't compare it too thoroughly. So those are the results on camera now. Hopefully that's clear enough for everyone to see. I'll let you make your own judgment. Mine would be that the lighter you press, obviously the better chance you've got of bringing it back off the paper if you need. I wouldn't say they are 100% erasable like people probably expect them to be though. I mentioned earlier that the other brands I tested on camera are probably better for colouring areas and actually using as regular coloured pencils. And that the Col-erase ones seem to be more popular for illustrations and actually creating line work with. So the swatches are all well and good, but I figured I would test these out on paper with some really quick illustrations, just so that I had a rough idea of how they worked. And before I get too into that, there was one thing I do want to point out. I see these used a lot with markers, and that's actually one of the main reasons I got them. So I'm not sure if they work better than other colour pencils for that, or if it's just personal preference. I am going to test that, but I am going to save that for a different video because this video already had quite a lot in it. But yeah, people like to play around with putting these down on the page first and then putting markers over the top of these. And then some people also just use these over the top of markers. So I'll try and make a separate video in the near future for those that are interested in that. And these random illustrations that I'm drawing here are actually from an app on my phone. It's a game that I've been playing. That's why they look so random, and you might have noticed my phone in shot. These are probably some of the worst illustrations I've done recently. I almost didn't put this footage on, but they were only intended as quick sketches just to test out these pencils for drawing with. The paper I'm using on this one is actually slightly textured because this is a sketchbook, so this isn't the same as the printer paper. I wouldn't say that I noticed much difference using this type of paper though. This one will be a little bit thicker with a little bit more texture. The reason I hear people like to draw with these over graphite, one is that they don't come up quite as easily when smudging, although as you saw in my test earlier you can still smudge them. Not as easily as regular graphite though. And then the other thing is they're quite a good base layer or an underlayer to work with markers. As mentioned, we'll look at that in another video though. I'm used to using mechanical pencils, so I don't normally stop to sharpen pencils often. This was a little bit different for me. I did have to stop and sharpen them a lot more than I was hoping for, more than I intended to, and it got to a point where it was definitely even affecting my illustrations. I was definitely losing some quality, but I just got to a point where I was fed up of stopping and sharpening constantly, so I just carried on through it. So that might be an important factor for some people. I actually got mine new on eBay, and I think I got them from Japan, because I didn't realise I could get these here in the UK on Amazon at the time. They had them, but they were really expensive. But I have now realised that they have just changed the packaging on these and that they are available at the moment. So if you are browsing for these online, I think at the moment they're in black packaging, not blue packaging like I showed earlier. Roughly you are looking at sort of £20 to £25 for the 24 set. I think I paid about £10 for the 12 set, but it seems to change quite a lot. So my final thoughts on these, I definitely want to test these out on markers because that was the intention I actually bought them for. But without markers, I was actually a little bit disappointed with them. Now, they are good, and I'm not really sure what I was expecting, but for me, they weren't as erasable as I'd hoped, and it didn't keep a sharp tip for as long as I'd hoped, so for those two reasons alone, I'm probably going to use them less than I'd intended. Maybe that's just me being really fussy, I'm not sure, or maybe it is the paper types that I used. I will do more tests off camera, but this was just my sort of first impressions and a quick review for you guys. So I'm going to leave it at that, guys. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any experience with the Prismacolor Col-erase pencils, definitely leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think to them. I'd love to test out more of the Pilot Colour Enos in comparison. They definitely seem to be as good, maybe better, we'll see. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, leave me a comment below, and of course, make sure you subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, everyone.